Hello folks, welcome back to WW2TV, and a bit of a disclaimer before I start, because a couple of people yesterday grumbled about the quality of the video content that I was creating. Well, don't forget, I am live on site. I'm relying on whatever signal I can get up here. It's not to do with my equipment, it's to do with the signal and the internet. But I'm here in another part of Guernsey. We are off-piste this afternoon. We have seen some German bunkers, but that's not our focus today. Today we're thinking about what the British essentially think about Guernsey and whether or not it's a target for commando raids. And there are the RAF attacks on installations here. There's lots of German stuff here, a German garrison here, and we're talking about commando raids. And we are in a fantastic view looking down there, little fishing boat down there, fantastic rocks. But it's pointless me talking about the commando raids here when I've got someone who in fact brought us here, Nick Lahure, who has of course his famous it's becoming famous podcast about the Channel Islands at war. So Nick Lahure, I'm going to ask him to tell us about what we have here and what's going on. So where are we, Nick? What are we looking at?
Hi, Woody. We're on the south coast of Guernsey. We're near Petitport Bay, up in an area called Jerberg, and this is where a number of commando landings happened. A chap called Hubert Nicol, 7 days after the occupation, came ashore just over on the cliffs behind us. Just to do a bit of a recce, find out what was going on. He was a local chap, so the obvious choice for sending here to come and find out. He did that recce, came back. 2 other Guernsey men were dropped off. He briefed them, went back to the submarine. They went off to gather information ready for Operation Ambassador, which happened a little bit later. And Ambassador was, well, depends whether you can either say it's a disaster or not. I had an interesting debate with Al Murray about this over a glass of wine, and I can kind of see his point, because nobody got killed, and just 4 were captured. But it was a little bit disorganized. There were 3 boats that were supposed to come ashore, one over on the cliffs over that way, where they were supposed to come ashore, go up the cliffs, and then head up to the airport and destroy any aircraft they found there. One boat which came ashore here at Petitport, that successfully made it here. The one over by the airport didn't. And then another one had a complete disaster and ended up on one of the other Channel Islands and almost didn't get found in time for coming back. So they had a look round on the headland here, and I'm going to take you to go and have a look around some of the areas they went. They discovered there weren't actually any Germans on the headland, because it was so early on in the occupation, they'd all gone back to St. Peterport. So they had a look round, cut the communication cable that ran to Jersey. One of the sergeant majors was really keen on the idea of blowing some stuff up before they went, but Durnford Slater was like, no, we're already running late and we don't want to attract any attention. But they had a good search round but couldn't find anyone. Went back down to the boats. Durnford Slater tripped. His Webley was cocked. It went off. And there are varying accounts as to whether there was any machine gun fire or not. I'm thinking that it probably wasn't, based on most of the accounts that I've read. They got down to the beach. Then they had a bit of a problem. The tide, of course, had started to go out. The boats couldn't get close enough to pick them up. So they decided they were going to have to swim for it, leave all their kit on the beach. Now, they'd only been recruiting these guys about 5-6 weeks before. No one had actually asked them if they could swim, which turned out to be a bit of a disaster, because 3 of them had to admit that they couldn't. So Durnford Slater said, okay, you're going to have to hide. I'll send the Royal Navy back to pick you up. That didn't happen, unfortunately. The other 2 guys, Mulholland and Martel, were supposed to be picked up on the same night. They had gone to meet the party that was supposed to arrive over on the cliffs over there. Unfortunately, they didn't manage to meet up with them. They went into hiding for 6 weeks.
Wow.
Sorry, not quite 6 weeks. But they went into hiding and had to eventually give themselves up. Otherwise, they were going to cause problems for the family and friends that they had here.
Well, brilliant stuff, Nick. And you're going to be part of our ongoing coverage of the Channel Islands, coming on and kind of being a a co-host, hopefully, with me when we talk up to some of the people that we've met. Richard at the Occupation Museum this morning, and some of the people from Fest Done Guernsey. So, you're going to be part of this ongoing content. So I'm going to go and do some filming. JD's doing his B-roll over there. But Nick, been fantastic listening to you. Thanks for driving us around. Bring a bigger car next time, so I'd have to squeeze in the back. But it's been fantastic stuff, Nick. Thank you very much. Cheers. I will speak to you soon. So that was Nick giving us the lowdown there. And it's interesting because my concept of commando raids is like you don't go back to the same place twice. You may, or the same location, but the same route. But here they did, as Nick said, they used this a couple of times, more than a couple of times. And they kind of came ashore, and one of them down there somewhere where my finger's pointing. And from down there up this, you can just see, you can't see the path, but you can see the line of rocks there. 330 steps down, 330 steps up. So, okay, you're a commando, but you're going to be absolutely cream crackered after a 330 step climb up there, getting off boat. And then you go off into the hinterland there to do your investigation. Then JD and I and Mag, we're having this extraordinary reaction over a couple of days, is that now we're getting just used to seeing German bunkers everywhere. You can see from here up by the radio masts over there. By the right one is another great bit of German concrete there. Richard, the owner of the Occupation Museum we went to this morning, well, I couldn't do a live streaming from because we were inside and the quality, the signal wasn't good. But he said there are 1,000 German bunkers on Guernsey. So remember, Guernsey is 24 square miles, 1,000 German bunkers. And they're mostly still here. And what happened is, as Nick was explaining, others have been explaining to us, Amanda Johns, our tour guide yesterday, is a huge amount of them are on private property. So people use them as store sheds, people grow mushrooms in them. And what Nick was just explaining to us, after war, they were wondering about, like, who owns them? The German government built them during the war. So at the end of the war, the Guernsey government owned them? And they decided that if they were on your property, they were yours. So munitions were taken away. Heavy weaponry was taken away. There was an issue we were just finding out, so 20 years after war, where lots of school kids around here ended up kind of owning things like German pistols and submachine guns that had been left in some of the bunkers, and they started to kind of crack down on that. But it's extraordinary to us that there's that much of concentration of bunkers in one place, and that they're still here, and they've been in some ways repurposed. And yes, you're absolutely right, Roderick. It's absolutely spectacular views here. We're a little bit, it's not unfortunate that the sun's out, believe me, but with the way we've had to come to where we are, because we wanted to film from kind of over there. There's a person standing back this way. But the problem with that there, I think that might be JD gone over there, is that the sun's right in our eyes. Because if I turn around, you'll see the sun is really bright coming straight towards us, which kind of makes for a pretty shot there. But this, we're on this process of taking what information we knew about Guernsey and the Channel Islands to here, and then having that information jiggled about a bit by our encounters with the fantastic people we've met here. And it's raising all these notions of occupation and resistance and accommodation. And we were in the Prio Library, and I did some footage there that I'll make some content later this morning in St. Peter Port. And there are German propaganda newspapers for the people of Guernsey in English about June the 6th. Mag said, have you got the newspapers from June the 7th and 8th, 1944? So this is the Germans reporting about Overlord in English for the people of Guernsey. So, of course, the spin is horrific. They're saying, fierce opposition by the Germans. The Germans have sunk ships. Certain Allied units have been wiped out there. And it's really, you obviously imagine that the Germans in Germany would be printing in German for their people, that they're be dismissing Overlord. But seeing it in English was really curious. And as the newspaper article goes on to say, it'll be just as costly as the Italian campaign for the Allies. So it's interesting. And of course, also on the front cover of this newspaper, they couldn't help but just make these derogatory comments about Jews. And there was one that showed the picture of some nose art on the side of an Allied aircraft that sort of they were saying was, they're just fighting for these evil Jewish benefactor type things. And it's fascinating. So we're having great food. We're having a great welcome. There's history literally everywhere here. Not just World War II history, all sorts of history. That's Doyle Tower over there, who was one of the famous lieutenant governors back here in the 18th century. But I'm going to just pan around a bit more and show you more of this. The signal, I think, is very strong here. And we're going to carry around looking at what the commandos did here. So it's been fantastic experience. We're off to Alderney tomorrow, crack of a sparrow's fart in the morning, a flight to Alderney, and we're going to look at some other aspects of the Channel Islands occupation, including the work camps, the forced labour, the deportations, the darker side, if you like, of the occupation. Not that there wasn't a dark side here as well, but a specific of dark angle, and more German bunkers. But there we are. Just a little bit. Yeah, some private owners do give permission. And the Festung Guernsey people, Banana Brooks, who we'll be having on our channel in the next few weeks, some of the experts on there, they arranged to take their groups there on open days and private tours. One particular guy has a 10.5 centimeter replica gun inside the gun emplacement he owns, which is pretty damn cool. And we are seeing that these organizations have decked them all out with, you know, the German writing is still inside the bunkers. You'll see all this footage, the proper footage I took and JD's been taking. You'll see over the next few days and weeks. These little impromptu live streams are just bonus material. But I'm going to say goodbye to you now. Maybe I'll do another one of these later on. Maybe I won't. Definitely we'll do something from Alderney, I think, again, providing the signal is there. But in the meantime, just start to get excited about the Channel Islands. If you're not already, I can't put the links in there yet, but make sure you go and find Nick's podcast about the Channel Islands. I'll give you the links to the museums, the resources, the hotels, and the restaurants that have been fantastic to us, because we are unashamedly commercial here. But stunning views, stunning locations, stunning history, and a stunning welcome. So cheers, everybody. See you all later. Bye.